All right, let's talk about something we've all lived through, for better and for worse: teamwork.
Oh, you know exactly the one I'm talking about, right? That school project where you did everything, or that work meeting that just goes nowhere. You're just sitting there spinning your wheels thinking, wow, this is a total disaster. We have all been there. So, what's the secret sauce? What's the real difference between a dream team and a complete nightmare? Well, it's not just luck. Turns out there's a real science to it. We're going to break it all down: the predictable stages, the hidden forces at play, and what really makes a group click or just fall apart.
Okay, first things first, let's get on the same page. What even is a group? It's not just a bunch of people standing around. The key here, the really important part, is that they're interacting and interdependent. That means they actually have to rely on each other to get something done. That's our starting point. Now, what's fascinating is that almost every group, whether they realize it or not, follows a kind of roadmap. It's a natural journey, and it's got 5 clear stages. And here they are. You've got forming, storming, norming, performing, and for some groups, adjourning. It starts with those kind of awkward first meetings, moves through some inevitable conflict, then you find your groove, and finally, you're actually getting stuff done. And seriously, just knowing which stage your group is in, that can change everything. So let's look at stage 1, forming. This is that feeling out period. It's filled with uncertainty. Everyone's kind of testing the waters, right? You're trying to figure out what the heck you're supposed to be doing and who's who in the room. It's exactly like the first day at a new school. Everyone's polite, but it's definitely a little awkward.
And then, boom, the storm hits. This stage is called storming for a reason. It's all about conflict within the group. People start jostling for position. Who's in charge here? What's our actual goal? This is, without a doubt, the toughest part of the journey. A lot of groups get stuck here and just fizzle out.
But if you can make it through that storm, you get to norming. This is where things start to click. Relationships are built, you get a real sense of we're in this together. And that sets you up perfectly for the next stage: performing. Now the group is a well-oiled machine, totally focused on getting the job done. And of course, for projects that end, there's adjourning. Time to wrap it up and hopefully celebrate a job well done.
Okay, so that's the group's life cycle. But underneath all that, there's a hidden architecture. It's like the invisible framework that holds the whole thing up, and it dictates how everyone behaves and whether you'll succeed or fail. So let's break down this hidden structure. We're talking about a few key things: the roles people fall into, the unwritten rules or norms that everyone follows, the status of different members, how the size of the group changes things, and finally, cohesiveness, which is kind of the glue holding it all together. Think about roles for a second. It's basically the part you're expected to play. Are you the person who's all about the to-do list, making sure the work gets done? That's a task role. Or maybe you're the one who keeps the peace and makes sure everyone's getting along. That's a satisfaction role. And get this, you can't succeed without both. They are both absolutely essential. Next up are norms. These are the powerful, unspoken rules of the game. They control everything, you know? Like, is it cool to leave at 5 p.m. sharp, or does everyone stay late? What's the dress code? And these norms are so strong they can pull anyone into line no matter who they are. And this is where we get into something really powerful and sometimes pretty dangerous: conformity. It's human nature, right? We all want to fit in, to be accepted. And because of that, we're super vulnerable to peer pressure. Now, when that pressure goes too far, you get the dark side: groupthink. This is what happens when everyone's so focused on agreeing with each other that nobody's willing to speak up with a different idea. It just shuts down all critical thinking. And the scary part is, a team can feel totally on the same page while heading straight for a terrible decision.
Which brings us to cohesiveness, that team spirit, the glue we talked about. Now, you'd think, the more cohesive, the better, right? Well, it's not that simple. Check this out. If you have a super tight-knit group and their goals are the same as the company's goals, productivity goes through the roof. But what if that same really close team doesn't agree with the company's goals? Productivity can totally tank. They might work together to do less work. So cohesiveness is like an amplifier. It can make things really good or really bad.
All right, so even if you have the perfect structure, you're gonna hit bumps in the road. It's just inevitable. Disagreements will happen. The real trick is knowing what kind of fight you're having. Believe it or not all conflict is a bad thing. Actually, some of it is good for you. There's what we call functional conflict, the kind that challenges ideas and pushes the team to do better. It's the antidote to groupthink. Then, of course, there's dysfunctional conflict, and that's just the destructive stuff that grinds everything to a halt. So let's get even more specific. You've got three main types. First, there's task conflict. That's arguing about the work itself. What are we doing? This can be super healthy. Then there's process conflict, arguing about how to do the work. A little of this can be okay. But the one you have to watch out for is relationship conflict. This is personal. It's about who you're working with. And this kind is almost always a disaster. It just sucks the life out of a team. Okay, up to now, we've been using the word group a lot. But there's a next level, a higher form of collaboration that the truly great organizations are chasing. And that's making the leap from being just a group to becoming a real team. So what really separates a group from a team? Well, in a group, you're mostly just responsible for your own work, individual accountability. But on a team, you're responsible for yourself and for each other. You're mutually accountable. You're all in it together. And this creates the magic word, synergy. It means the team's output is way, way bigger than just adding up what each person could do on their own.
Just picture a surgical team in an operating room. You've got the surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the nurses. They aren't just passing notes back and forth. Their success is completely dependent on their perfectly coordinated effort. Every single person in that room is accountable to each other for that patient's life. Now that is a team.
Or how about an F1 pit crew? A win or a loss comes down to milliseconds. It has nothing to do with one person's star performance. It's all about perfect, flawless, synchronized action from everyone. That's the definition of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts.
You can even see this in the controlled chaos of a great restaurant kitchen. The chefs, the cooks, the dishwashers, everyone is working in this intense, coordinated dance to create one amazing meal. They're not just a collection of individuals who happen to be in the same space. No, they are a team working toward one single goal.
And that really brings it all back to you, doesn't it? So think about your own work, your own projects. Ask yourself, are you just part of a group where you're basically just sharing information and doing your own thing? Or are you part of a real team, working together to create something that none of you could ever have achieved alone? Because that difference, well, that's everything.